Hello, Wonderhussy here at a place called the Alabama Hills. Despite the name, I am not in Alabama. In fact, well, you might recognize the Sierra Nevada mountains there in the background, and I think you can even see Mount Whitney right up there. Highest peak in the continental US, and I've hiked it before. But I ain't going up there today. No, today I'm hanging out at the base of Mount Whitney in these Alabama Hills. I guess they're called the Alabama Hills because they were named after a Confederate battleship. At least that's what I read online. Anyway, the Alabama Hills are basically this crazy jumble of giant boulders piled up at the foot of Mount Whitney on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada mountains, just outside the town of Lone Pine. And even though they're geographically separate from the Sierra, they're technically a part of the same geologic formation. These rocks are between 80 and 200 million years old. And because they make such an amazing, dramatic backdrop, they've been used in a ton of movies. If you grew up watching old Western movies, a lot of old Westerns were shot out here. As a matter of fact, last night, I camped by a place called Gunga Din Temple. I guess it was in the movie Gunga Din. Anyway, nowadays, the Alabama Hills are popular with hikers, rock climbers, scramblers, and they used to be real popular with campers because for a long time, the Alabama Hills were managed by the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, aka the federal government. These were public lands where you could camp and recreate for free, but unfortunately all that changed. Well, back in 2019, they changed the name to the Alabama Hills National Scenic Area, so I'm not sure if it's still maintained by the BLM or not, but what really did the whole camping situation in was the pandemic. Okay, you know how during COVID, everybody had all this free time on their hands, and so people started going outdoors and camping and hiking and, well, I guess emphasis on camping. A lot of people went camping, and apparently a ton of people came out here because if you remember, the pandemic started in March, April, and that's just a beautiful time to be out here. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm here in July and it is hot. It's gonna be in the 90s today. But in the spring, this is one of the best places ever to camp because, wow, there's campsites tucked away all over the place in these boulder fields, and you can find yourself a little nook where you're sort of sheltered from the wind, you have a little bit of privacy, and the dark skies are absolutely amazing out here. So of course everybody wanted to do that during the pandemic, and unfortunately, well, you know what happens. Everybody started coming out here and, well, from what I heard, pooping, shooting, and generally just leaving a mess behind. And we're right outside this very small town, Lone Pine. There's only like a couple thousand people who live there. It's a real small town. They don't have the services to accommodate these hordes of visitors. They certainly don't have the budget to go in here and clean up all the poop and shotgun shells. So unfortunately, well, what I had heard is that they had cracked down on camping in the Alabama Hills. And that bummed me out because I always wanted to come out here and make a video and camp out. I just didn't get around to it in time. Another thing I apparently missed the boat on, because now you drive around these here hills and you see all kinds of signs like this. No camping. But come to find out, like with everything, there's actually some nuance to these new restrictions. And you can see they even have a whole informational board here posted all about where can I camp. Now, of course, there are designated campgrounds in the area, but if you're like me, gosh, you really hate camping in a designated campground. I mean, you're jammed in right next to other people. Everybody can hear your business. There's no privacy. I really don't like designated campgrounds. Fortunately, you can still dispersed camp, which is what it's called when you just, go out and find a spot and pick up your own trash and dispose of your human waste properly. You just have to look for sites that have this tent sign and not the tent with the line through it. And as long as you camp on a site with this sign on it, well, it's basically just like the good old days. I mean, you can still stay for 14 days. You can still, well, there's no campfires allowed at all right now because it's fire ban in effect. But normally you could have a campfire, still have to take out your trash. They did put in a few porta potties, which they ask you to please either go to the bathroom in town or use these because, you're supposed to dig a 6-inch cat hole if you poop in the woods. And Well, this is pretty hard packed ground. It's hard to dig a cat hole. So, you know, I guess they put these up to somewhat mitigate the poop apocalypse. I made that up myself. You like that? And I'm not gonna lie, I did drive around quite a bit last night looking for a place to camp, and it seemed like most of the good spots had the tent with the line through it. But I did eventually find a really cool campsite. It was a great place to stay. It was very peaceful. I had plenty of privacy. And to be honest, I would come back here and camp again, but probably not during the busy time of year. You know, like right now, like I said, it's July, it's hot. Nobody in their right mind wants to be camping out here. So that's probably why I had luck finding a decent spot. If you came here in the spring, I have a feeling it would be a different story. Anyway, I'm gonna get in my car and go for a little drive because there's a bunch of really cool hikes you can do in the Alabama Hills. I mean, these boulder fields are basically just like a giant jungle gym or playground. Super fun. I need to get some exercise. I don't have a ton of time, so I'm just gonna hit, I think, what's considered to be the most popular trail here. And it has a pretty cool attraction at the end of it. Okay, this is called the Arch Loop Trail, and it's called that because it goes past a couple of really cool natural stone arches, you know, like you see at Arches National Park in Utah. Well, kind of the same thing out here, it's just not the same orange color. But if I may be so bold, I might actually argue that the geology and the geography out here is even more interesting than that at Arches National Park. Okay, maybe I'm just partial to it over here because I'm from California, but man, this jumble of boulders at the foot of this, I mean, first of all, the Sierra Nevada mountains are absolutely gobsmacking. Okay, here you have this giant 14,000 foot high mountain range separating the cool coast of California from the broiling, blistering desert interior. Now you come down out of the Sierras where it's all nice and cool and pine trees and fern and moss and creeks, and down here you're in the Mojave Desert, and it's a very dramatic and very abrupt collision of two worlds, which I actually find fascinating. Now you can see it's a real easy trail, flat, soft, sandy. I'm doing it in my flip-flops. If I was gonna go on a more aggressive, I mean, I guess you could climb to top of any of these formations. And so if I was going to do that, yes. Well, I was going to say I'd put boots on, but I might not because I actually climbed a rock at my campsite this morning so I could get a cool angle for my video. And it's very grippy, these granite boulders, I'll show you. These granite boulders are really rough and nubbly. I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but they're very grippy, which makes them super easy to climb up, even if you're wearing flip-flops. What a jaw-droppingly beautiful day to be taking this hike. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit hot, but it's not too bad. It's still morning. It's in the 80s. There's a breeze blowing straight off the top of the Sierra, and it's kind of like having an air conditioner because there's still plenty of snow up there. So even by the time it gets down here, it's a nice cool breeze. See what I mean? It's like a giant playground. I just want to climb to the top of... Woo! I'm alive! Seriously, I don't care who you are. This landscape is enough to bring out the inner child in everyone. You know, once we grow up and start working and worrying about girls and cars and bills, we lose that spark that we had as kids that makes us want to climb up and... Oh gosh, I just saw something very interesting. Speaking about worrying about girls, look at this rock. There's like this mysterious hole in it. Wow, I feel so intrusive. Well, I wonder how this thing got carved. Yeah, I guess it was just wind and I was gonna say water, but there's not that much rain out here, so it must have just been blasted by wind somehow over the years. Actually, what I was reading about the geology of this area is very interesting. So we have the Sierras back there at 14,000 feet, but I think they did some kind of studies and found that the Alabama Hills, the area that the Alabama Hills are in, is like gravel, really, really deep. So it's like it got filled in. And what we're looking at here are the tips of another formation that maybe was as tall as the Sierras. It just got filled in with gravel. How about that? Oh, look, here's one of the arches that we're hiking to. Okay, originally I thought there were 2 different arches on this trail, but I think there might only be one. And so this has to be the world famous, legendary Möbius arch. Möbius, M-O-B-I-U-S, like a Möbius loop. If you're familiar with, I guess it's like a mathematical thing. The Möbius loop is it's hard to describe. It's like a loop that twists around, back in on itself, like in sort of like in a way suggesting infinity. Okay, that was a terrible way to describe it, but I think this rock is somehow supposed to represent that. I don't know. It doesn't look like it's twisting to me though. It goes up and around. Well, it kind of does twist there. Huh, interesting. Anyway, I'm sure that can't be the only cool thing on this trail. Let's keep hiking and see what else we come upon. Man, what's really cool about hiking out here is there's no signs telling you have to stay on the trail or not to climb any of the boulders. I mean, there wasn't even a sign on the Möbius arch, which you think as the most famous arch here, they would want to protect. No, this is like a hands-on paradise. It's really, frankly, a vanishing thing in today's world, and I really appreciate it. You know, you can basically go wherever you want, on foot that is, and you can actually ride dirt bikes and side-by-sides out here too. I think they're not prohibited. You just have to stay on the designated trails. And so because it is such a free zone, I guess, and you can do anything you want, that's why they had to enforce those camping restrictions, because, well, unfortunately, there's always a few people who ruin it for everyone else. Okay, I want to go down in this little stream bed because I saw something kind of interesting when I was on top of that rock. Oh my God, what a landscape. I mean, those towering snow-capped peaks in the background behind all this crazy deserty looking stuff. It's pretty cool. Land of extremes. Wow, look at the way these rocks have been carved. This definitely was carved by water, because probably what happens is snow melts way up at top of the mountains there and then comes a gushing down this little wash, just knocking everything in its path out of its way, but also carving really cool shapes. And just like, look at this overhang providing some much needed shade. Oh yeah, it is a scorcher today. I always forget when I come out here, like, oh, I'm going to the Eastern Sierra, it'll be nice and cool. Well, no, Lone Pine, even though it's in the shadow of the highest peak in the continental United States, it gets hot out here. We're still in the desert, which is why these shady overhangs are such welcome relief. Man, what a beautiful little dry creek bed. And look at all the little plants that are growing in this. I mean, it doesn't look like very good soil. It's just sand, but this little guy's got all kind of little yellow flowers all over him. And this thing looks like it has bunches of popcorn. Oh, look, there's a bug. What is it? Hey, feller, what are you? I come in peace. Oh my gosh, talk about popcorn. Look at this bush. These like snow white cotton ball looking things. Oh wow, they're so soft, but they conceal deadly spikes. I think this is the things that get in the sole of your flip-flop. Oh, how can something so beautiful be so deadly? But yeah, this is so beautiful. It feels like I'm walking through a fake diorama or something at a natural history museum. You know what I mean? Like there should be mannequins of like a traditional Native American woman grinding maize in her little, what do they call that stone thing? Well, you know what I mean. Like you would see at a natural history museum. It looks like that kind of set. Or like that old TV show, The Wonderful World of Disney. Didn't they have an episode about the living desert? The desert is a harsh environment, but provides a safe habitat for many creatures. The good old days. Okay, here's this thing I saw from the top of that rock, and I thought it was, well, I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of cooler than it really is. But it's still pretty cool. It's like these two boulders that are just sort of nestled together, and then there's this little tiny crevice between them that we can crawl inside and take a break in the shade. Hopefully this rock doesn't choose today to fall on me. I mean, it's been resting there for millennia, and just my luck today, right now, would be the time it finally decides to fall. Yikes, I guess I better get out of here. Even though that shade was nice, I don't want to get squashed. Actually, that's what I find maybe the most fascinating about this weird landscape is how these rocks ended up where they are. Okay, like I said a minute ago, these are just like the tips of some giant mountain range that's buried in sand, but some of these weird up thrusts, I was reading online, are theorized to have been caused by earthquakes. I mean, I think there's a huge earthquake fault going through here. And in fact, there was an earthquake in 1872 that caused a vertical displacement of 15 to 20 feet. Okay, I'm no seismologist, but I take that to mean 15 to 20 feet vertical displacement, like one side of the one plate went 15 to 20 feet above the other one. And so that would have caused some pretty dramatic upheavals. In fact, it was a terrible disaster for the town of Lone Pine. A bunch of people died. But I mean, out here, no telling how many crazy earthquakes have occurred over the millennia to get this landscape looking the way it does. Just one more reason why the Eastern Sierra is so amazing. I mean, the Eastern Sierra has incredible rock formations, amazing natural hot springs, and all of this stuff wouldn't be possible without some pretty scary stuff going on below decks, if you know what I mean. I mean, we're sitting on top of a giant caldera here, the Long Valley Caldera, I think it's called, and that geothermal heat is what's heating all these hot springs, which is great, until the dang thing blows. And I think that fault line is overdue for another earthquake too, so oh gosh, I guess there's a cost to living in paradise. That's why it's important to enjoy every day as if it might be your last. If this was my last day, well, I guess I'd die happy. I mean, I got to sleep out here under the most amazing stars, and then I woke up to see this through my tailgate window. The only downside is I was too tired to make anything good for dinner last night, so I just ate a bag of beans and rice without even heating it up. So if this was my last day, well, I would at least want a nice plate of carne asada fries or something. Oh, it's almost lunchtime. I'm getting hungry. I guess I better wrap this hike up and get back to my car. And maybe I will. Well, my favorite carne asada fries in the entire world are just an hour or two up the road, and that's the way I'm heading anyway. So maybe I'll treat myself. I don't know. That's a lot of calories. You know, one simply doesn't eat carne asada fries without climbing at least a few more of these formations. Oh wait, there is another arch on this trail. Look at this one. Try to climb up and give you a better view. This one's called the Heart Arch, because I guess if you look at it in a certain light, it's sort of heart-shaped. Oh, isn't that sweet? I wonder if any babies were ever conceived up there in that cave. I mean, if you were bold enough, you could climb up there, and I'll bet you anything, it's a fine spot for baby making. What better place than Heart Arch? Whew. Okay, I think I earned my asada fries now. Just gotta hike back to my car, which is right up there, not far at all. And yeah, I will be sad to leave this beautiful part of the country, but I won't be sad to be camping where it's cooler. It's too hot down here. I camped down here for 2 nights, and I've had enough. I'm going someplace cooler with better food. One last look at the beautiful Alabama hills before I leave. And you know, looking around, it is kind of a bummer that you can't just cruise around and post up wherever you want to camp. But I guess that's just the world we live in nowadays. and I'm not gonna let that ruin my day. Okay, this place is 3 hours north of the Alabama Hills, but they're the best carne asada fries anywhere. Yum.